Jack said to me and Meg have been playing music.
I'd like to introduce to you a band that you know and love. Come to you like the sound of equipment being thrown from a moving van, the sound of dead cell phones and oil rigs, the sound of empty parking lots and school buses. They love to live and live to love. Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus Children of America, the White Stripes.
What we got here? Hello, come on in. The water's great. My name is Ryan Schapp, and this is the hardest podcast to podcast, the only podcast covering the White Stripes, and we're doing it one song at a time, one song per episode, celebrating their entire catalog. Not just originals, but of course, the covers. And that's why we're all here this week. I got to tell you right now, it's about, what is this, 10... Why won't that focus? It's 10:53 on a Sunday night. I am mere minutes removed from seeing the Guess Who in concert. Feeling very patriotic. I got CanCon rock and roll flowing through my veins. And for a bunch of guys pushing 80, I had a great time. The Guess Who is a very good band. The Guess Who is a very Canadian band. Speaking of bands that are very good and very Canadian, Tegan and Sara are a very good, very Canadian band. Right out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, by way of Vancouver, when we claimed them as our own, and then Sara moves to Montreal later on. But this is a special group, and they had one of their biggest songs was covered by the White Stripes, and that was Walking with a Ghost. And we're going to talk with Sara Quin about her writing this song. This is a really big get for me, personally and maybe professionally. But, you know, the whole goal of this podcast is to get to speak to Jack White about these, you know, mystery songs that he wrote and to get that insight and to, you know, the interpretation for the most part is put on the back burner while the literal nature of the song is told to you by the author. And that's a special thing that doesn't get to happen nearly as often as maybe you'd like. So I have wanted to speak with a Sara, a Tegan, or a Tegan and Sara since I started this podcast. And I was lucky enough for this to happen. And this was a very special conversation that I had. And it's a long conversation. And for a podcast about the White Stripes, there's not a lot of White Stripes in this because this is more about the body of work and my personal connection with the band. Like I'm a big fan of this group, and they're two artists that I really, really respect and admire. So to get the opportunity to, you know, to speak to somebody and say, you know, hey, this is how important some of your music is, like, you know, it's going to deviate from the format of this show. So I want you to enjoy this episode. I want you to know that the White Stripes conversation, the dialogue, it's on the back burner. And it comes up a little ways down the line, but, you know, and there are important things to talk about. But this is about getting to speak to an artist about their art and their craft, and that artist today is Sara Quin. So if you're here, you're a first-timer, if you've come here as a Tegan and Sara head, I hope you liked it because this was a very special conversation. And boy, let me tell you, the adrenaline dump afterwards, crashed hard. Also, yeah, this is a long episode. I'm going to keep this short off the top, but it's a long conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. So normally there's a call to action on this show where you hit pause on this podcast and go to your streaming platform of choice and go find this song to listen to it. One, so it is as fresh in your mind as it was in my mind and Sarah's mind when we talked about it, but also to help help us let the fat cats at Third Man Records know that we're out here. We're making a little noise. We're little download blips going up. But this song is not on streaming, and I can't figure out. I mean, I didn't figure out why. I probably could have, but it's not on Spotify or Apple Music. It lives in CD form or on YouTube. So go check out the White Stripes cover. Go check out the Tegan and Sara original version. And once it's fresh in your mind, come back here and we'll talk to Sara Quin. I hope you enjoy it. Our guest this week is one half of the iconic indie pop duo Tegan and Sara. She co-authored their beautiful memoir, High School, a book so good I bought it twice, and co-founded the Tegan and Sara Foundation, which continues to invest in the potential of 2S LGBTQ plus communities. Oh, and she wrote this song, Walking with a Ghost. She is Sara Quin. Sara, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. I have a little bit of a cold.
Okay.
And I'm in my garage. I'm in my garage because I'm building a studio, and the studio, actually I get possession of my studio next week. So sad for you. You have to see me in my garage looking like this. And next week it would have been like so next level Beyonce. It's like this thing would have just went off. It's crazy.
Would the authenticity not be there? Would you just have those wood panels that you get from Costco that every podcast has? Or
you know what? It's funny you say that because I make fun of podcasting a lot lately. Like not like there's so much. I love. There's so many podcasts I love. Like who has enough time in their lives anymore to listen to the podcast that you want to listen to? Like I certainly don't. Actually, my wife the other day was like, I always have my AirPods in and I'm always listening to a podcast, and she finds it really annoying that I always have my headphones in. But I'm like, how will I listen to the 300 podcasts that I'm subscribed to if I don't?
You got kids. It's 24 hours in the day. You're building studios. Is
there? I don't even believe that there's 24. I'm going to do an experiment.
6 or 7.
It feels about like 4.2 hours a day. But, but it's funny because when I was working with the folks who helped me design, sorry, I just adjusted my level. Does it seem like I'm still? You're going to tell me. It's like, am I a musician? Who knows? Audio
You're sounding
new
great.
to me.
We'll use the awful AI tools to make it absolutely perfect.
Great. It's perfect.
Great.
Fix everything if you can. Fix it all. My face, my hair, just do it all. Anyways, while I was working with the folks who were helping me like design the like look of my space, it's like a studio, but like it's like a lounge and a kitchen and all these like things.
Sure.
And I just kept thinking like, first of all, I generally don't like the way that studios look. Like the materials required in them and whatever. Like I just find them sort of like it's just it's not to my eyeballs liking. And then also, I just couldn't help it. I was like, well, we might end up doing a podcast one day. So really we should think about, but I even think that I don't even want to do a podcast. I don't want to even be on other people's podcasts. And now I'm like designing my studio, which is supposed to be about music, to look like it could be a podcast studio.
And worst of all, here you are doing this podcast.
I mean, this is really the low mark for me, I'm only kidding. No, I love doing them. Actually, Tegan and I were kind of born, we almost could have, we're so old now, we almost missed podcasting era before we were dead. Like, if you had told me that, that we were going to be living through a time where no one cared about really hearing us play music, they just wanted to hear us talk about topics, I would have been like, then I am definitely in the right career.
Where does the good grow? Was pandemic appointment?
Oh shoot! Wait, hold on one second. God, I really am an idiot. Hold on.
What'd you do?
Somehow it went to my AirPods. I like literally said AirPods, and then when you started talking, it's like I could see my AirPods going.
You're well, there's been no audio issues. I'll tell you.
Okay,
that.
sweet. Oh my God, Jesus.
You're doing great. On the subject of podcasting, maybe you agree, the last thing I want to be classified is a podcaster. I'm not a podcaster. I'm somebody.
What are you?
I'm somebody that has a podcast.
I like that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not a gay musician. I'm a musician who's gay. That's my thing.
Listen, we're just trying to fool as many people as possible, and you're here, so I've already achieved that. All right, before we talk about the White Stripes, I have to tell you a couple things off the top. You are the last person, and probably one of the more key gets of my interview goals list when I started this project.
I love that. Thank you.
And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if Tegan or Sara or could talk about this song and just kind of really turn the format of the show on its side? This has happened, so that's really cool. Secondly, I got to say, I had some friends that like Tegan and Sara, but it was about 2019 when the book got me into your music.
Wow, really?
I don't know why,
That's
but
so funny.
on a whim, I bought it. I liked what I was hearing. I don't know if I was following you on Twitter or what, but I loved the book.
Cool.
I'm a couple years younger than you, but I grew up in Calgary as well, and just really resonated with me. You two came off as like the meanest, scariest kids that would be on the bus, high on acid, and I'd be like, "Oh God, I don't want to mess with them. Pull out a switchblade or something."
We weren't though. That's the thing. Like we were only tough when we had to be.
Isn't that life in a nutshell?
Absolutely.
You hope. That's the good way to do it.
That's right.
But I really got into your music, and I was remember I was at the Vogue for a show, and I was with my friend Errol, and he's like, and I was like, man, I really wish, like, Tegan and Sara is probably a band I wish I got into earlier, like a little more open-minded, a little less dumb boy-brained. And my buddy Errol's like, "Oh yeah, I saw them here at the Vogue. They were like great." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think the other band I really wish I stayed in, like, chugged along with was the Killers." And he's like, "I saw them here open for the Killers. They were better than the Killers." I'm like, "Well, great. I'm so glad."
Oh my God, that's so sad for you. You're like one of those kids that's really into that band that plays all Stroke songs. You know? Have you heard about them?
No.
You're like, okay, so there's this band and they are the Strokes basically. Like they're just like young guys and they play all Stroke songs. And then I saw this in the New York Times actually. It's like all these young fans who go crazy for them, and they'll just be like, "Yeah, it's really exciting for us because like we missed the Strokes, but now we get to see the Strokes like when they're young." And like I was like, "Oh my God." Like, because of course, we're not touring as much as we once did, and my hope is that, we're going to make a record next year and we will tour again. My hope is always that sort of like one of our sort of like one of the artists that really influenced us, maybe even to a degree that we didn't understand at the time, was Neil Young, because we toured with him and we were signed by Neil Young's manager. And so the early sort of like our early spongy young people musician brains, we saw his career as like, this is if there could be a career for us, this would be the career. And I think partly it was just because it felt really authentic. It felt like he played his hits, if you will, and he also just like riffed and he jammed and he played new stuff and he wore baggy jeans and he just seemed like he was just like doing whatever the fuck he wanted, But he also was jeans. Like, he was my takeaway from the tour, which was 25 years ago, was that, but he was also like current, like catering was the Atkins diet at the time. And I remember thinking like, all right, Neil, you're staying in shape. But so I still feel like an artist that is relevant, like is current, like even if deep down inside I sort of expect that our seminal records like So Jealous, The Con, probably Heartthrob to some degree, like those will be the records probably a lot of our fans will always want to hear songs from, and that's great because those are great. There's great songs on those albums, but I want to be able to jam and riff, play the hits, play some new stuff, wear baggy jeans. Like that, I want that career. Like I will be doing that for a long time. But yeah, I'm not, we're old Tegan and Sara now. We're like 46 almost,
Yeah.
You missed out, Ryan. Too fucking bad.
I was going to go see you on the Crybaby tour, but it was on my mom's birthday. And
okay, well that seems...
Mom, you got to prioritize Mom.
Are you in Vancouver now?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, fabulous. I was just at the new Freedom Mobile Arch or whatever they call it.
I live next door.
Okay, great venue.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple shows there now, and I'm like, I hope that next time Tegan and I play a show, we're playing there. And you bring your mom.
I would, yeah. I think I probably should have. I think we had good dinner plans, or there was a little more. It was a little more elaborate, so I couldn't have snuck out and said, "Mom, we're going to the Commodore." Although I have, Mom's cool. I've gone to good shows with Mom before.
No, you can't bring your mom to the Commodore. I barely want to go to the Commodore.
Well,
since they introduced tater tots, it killed it for me.
Yeah, you used to only be able to eat at that weird narrow bar underneath it, and then
or eat like a grown up before you go to the show. You don't need tater tots halfway through seeing Feist.
God.
Like for real.
I was like, what act are you going to pick that would be so spot on? And
Feist, which is one of the last shows I saw at the Commodore where I was like, oh no, Cat Power. I saw Cat Power and I was like, it just, all I'm going to think about for the rest of my goddamn life is, remember when we saw Cat Power and it just smelled like tater tots?
it should smell like spilled liquor,
sticky
occasional,
shoes.
Yeah. Sticky shoes. This is delightful. So Walking with a Ghost was a pretty important song for you. You wrote it. You and Tegan performed it. Normally I spend a lot of time on this show, like it's English class, and we're trying to interpret what the song means or what they were thinking. Ultimately, the lofty goals of this show are to have Jack White on 3 different times to do that, which will be cool to hear from that artist. But I'm in this situation, I have the incredible opportunity and privilege to hear, the artist tell me about this song. So, in my prep for it, you moved to Montreal on your own. You got no furniture in your house. It's the middle of winter. You're writing sad girl or sad kid songs, and this comes out. Like, tell me about Walking with a Ghost.
Yeah, so I had moved to Montreal in the winter, and
great time.
Yeah, I think it was actually, by the time I was writing this song, it probably would have been almost spring, but in Montreal that can still feel like winter. Yep. I had a little bit of furniture. I had a bed, I had a bookshelf, I had a table, and I was set up in the middle of the apartment, facing out these windows onto Barrie Street. At the time I lived at the corner of Sherbrooke East and Barrie. Wasn't much of a view, but, it was my first time living alone. I had left my parents' house and moved in with my first post-high school girlfriend originally. So this was actually my first time really, like, I left my girlfriend behind. We broke up. I left Tegan behind, and I flew to Montreal. And it was like, okay, like it really to me felt like, okay, this is really like life is happening now, and you're an adult. And there was a lot of, I was in that way that I assume can still happen now, although to hear people talk about it now, it can't. But I was out, I was social. Within a week and a half of living in Montreal, a city where I almost knew no one, I had new friends. I was drinking, I was taking drags off other people's cigarettes. Like, I mean, I was having a fun time. I was having a really fun time. And I met a girl that initially sort of put me off, but that's generally a sign that I like the person. And then we sort of had a bit of a fling, and then it got complicated, and she very responsibly was like, listen, I got to get my life together, and I'm graduating from college, and like, you just got to give me like a minute to kind of figure myself out, which most people in the sort of like throes of excitement, lust, whatever that is, hears as, I'll never speak to you again and I'm going to die. Like, I didn't just think maybe it'll take 6 weeks. I don't know. In my head, I was like, she's going to like forget about me. And so I started writing about her, like the way that I always sort of process the sort of most like acute emotions and feelings that I'm having. And yeah, I think because it felt like, I hate talking about it in this way now because I think it was like so innocent, like we were so young, but like we were having like a little bit of an emotional and physical affair, but it was like so brief, and it was just so like, I mean, she was in college and I was like 22, and it was just like whoopsie daisy, and like, okay, yeah, I've got a girlfriend, I got to figure this out, like just take a pause, it's fine. It didn't feel that scandalous, but I remember having a lot of complicated feelings, like, oh my God, I'm embroiled in this like thing that everyone cares about, which is funny now because it's like, who gives a fuck? But like,
dude, when you're 22 and you're like experiencing, like, I don't know, you're on your own for the first time. It's kind of like these grown-up situations where you don't have this support system around, and like everything is the biggest deal, and it remains the biggest deal. Everything's the biggest deal, and in your mind, everybody's focused on it till, I don't know, when you something clicks in your 30s and you're like, okay, maybe I can have a little patience and like just the give me a few weeks to get my life in order because I'm a little distracted. Like if I was that age, I'm like, well, that's it for me. Like, let's go. It's never
I had a
happening.
very irrational response. Like I respected her. Like I was like, no
Sure.
problem. I won't reach out. Like I understand. But I set about this kind of like like archiving my every thought and feeling and emotion for in the hopes that when she did, if she did return, I would share all of it with her. Like it wasn't like I was like, I'm in a journal and like deal with my emotions. Like I was like, I will write songs about her, which I will then put out on an album, which I will then play according to your prep something like 400 times live, you know, or whatever. And you know, and then I did this thing where I created an email address, and then I would email that email address my every thought and feeling to her. Like I would write her a letter.
I think
constantly.
That's the healthiest one of the.
I guess so, but then embarrassingly gave her all the email address and the password when we started talking. And was like, here's like, and that wasn't enough, Ryan. That wasn't enough. I also, during that brief time where she was finishing up her college education and needed a little bit of, you know, space to break up with her girlfriend, find a new apartment, and graduate college, she didn't want to talk to me, and we were on tour with Hot Heat in Europe, and I would write these short poems, and I would call the Montreal Gazette classifieds, and I would place them in the classified ads. And then I would have my friend Antoine collect the Gazette so I could also clip those and give those to her. Like I was a lunatic. Like I'm just so glad that it was the olden days and there was just only so many things that I could do, because I'm like horrified to think of how I would have behaved.
It was the olden days, but also like there was only so many ways to, you know, see this stuff. It was all traditional media. Well, except and then you gave her the password, and
I mean, I gave her all the stuff, and she was like, "Whoa!" But all of which to say, I was pumping a lot of my unrequited feelings into music, which has always been what this was about for me. It was like, you know, I think a lot of our music focused a lot on like girls and relationships, because that's what you're thinking about when you're a teenager and you're in your 20s, and you know, and that's what a lot of pop music is like, you know, at the end of the day. But I also think that, you know, it was a way for me to, you know, I guess like to admit or acknowledge some of the loneliness, isolation, disconnect that I often felt in my life. And a big part of that wasn't just like all joking aside, it wasn't just about like a girl being like, oh, no, I'm not interested in you, or I need time to figure out if I want to date you. A lot of times it was sort of like cascading rejection. Like it would be like, oh, this girl isn't interested in me. And then that brings up, well, I'm still not quite, you know, comfortable with my sexuality, and maybe something about this is about me, and maybe if I wasn't gay, I wouldn't have these problems. Like, you know, like I would sort of have this like cascading like drama for like, oh, it's just never going to be easy for me, you know? And that was what a lot of those songs on So Jealous were about, and it definitely was what Walking with a Ghost was about.
That's I love that you brought that up, because a couple of rock and roll memoirs really helped kind of enlighten me about like I don't want to say you can say the struggles, but just like the challenges that somebody, a queer person or somebody in that community has to go through. And like in high school, what I loved is it really paints a clear picture that like, okay, you know, everybody else has it so easy because there are normal benchmarks to know that you are doing things like boy meets girl meets boy, this happens, prom happens, you know, you go off to university and realize you're different and everybody's sad. But like just reading the struggles, you're like, nothing makes sense, and nobody's in place at that time in the 90s to explain, you know, oh, here's why it doesn't make sense, or here's human behavior, or here's what's going to happen. And it just really opened my eyes to just the challenges of that era for queer people.
I also think too, like, not to like broadly generalize here, but I think that especially as women, I think that we are we were sort of raised and socialized in this way where it was like we talked about our feelings and we like had deep connections with people. Like I was very equipped. I sort of like had all of the skills that I wanted to do that. And yet there was this like significant part of my identity that I understood I needed to not talk about. And that it felt very painful at times because it wasn't like I was like, you know, in my first year of college or something, and I was like, oh my God, it turns out I like girls. Like I probably like in elementary school, you know, with the right language, I would have been able to say like, oh, those things that I'm feeling or those thoughts that I'm having, like while they're not sexual yet, I think that I can start to put into a framework like that. I kind of am acting like the boys with girls. Like I'm acting with girls the way that boys act with girls. And I think I have crushes on girls. Like I would have been able, like, people always sort of, there's this like kind of blurring of like sex and sexuality. But a lot of times our sexuality presents itself long before we begin thinking about sex. It's the way that I have a baby, and sometimes the baby will smile at people and they'll be like, look at him flirting with her. Like we are so comfortable in society, like sexualizing, you know, this like 8-month-old infant smiling at like a stranger. Yeah, like what a slut that baby is. But it's like, you know, there's something about, you know, that part of like just growing up and having a crush, like having a crush on someone. Like I just always knew I would put that energy into these kind of like friendships that I had. Like I like this boy and that was fine. Like I could, I wasn't lying. It just wasn't the truth. Like the truth was that I felt that about girls, and it just got more and more uncomfortable and painful as I got older because I was just like, oh God, like this is just, it's so cerebral, it's so in my brain, and there's like no way to let it out. And it took me a long time to kind of like unwire that or like rewire it, because even once I was like into adult relationships, I would still have these kind of like, I don't know, like just the sort of like re-emerging bad habits or bad inner voice or something. And I would be like, that's actually high school. Like our memoir helped me a lot because I had never really immersed myself in that time. I was like most people, I got out of high school and was like, I will never think about that again. I don't want to look at those pictures. I am disgusting, like gross, whatever. And then when we started working on the memoir, and I really, really like went deep into the archive, listening to the music that we wrote, watching the videotapes that we sort of like found and hadn't looked at in 20 years. I was just utterly gutted by how desperately I wanted to go back and comfort that version of me, and how the history, I had rewritten it. And what I saw when I looked at that person was not like a disgusting, annoying person I never wanted to see again. It was actually a part of me that I know very well and is still very much alive inside of me, that I often am mean to or am quieting. And I saw myself in those videos, and I saw myself in the letters that I wrote to my friends as this sort of like questioning, curious, empathetic, somewhat prone to melancholy, like, you know, like I saw myself, and I just thought like, ugh, what I wouldn't give to like just show up in 1997 and just give Sara a hug and be like, you're the best. Stop. Like, just relax, you know? And it was really helpful to me to go through that process. And I feel like I actually like left a lot of my baggage behind after making that book and the TV show and everything.
Well, yeah, again, you have all of these like incredible core memories that are generally, you know, whether there's insecurity or trauma or just being horribly uncomfortable, like to kind of realize that, okay, you know, that's maybe not exactly as it seemed, and I can revisit those with mature, grown-up-ish eyes in mind. Like, I imagine that would be huge for you.
It was, and I like, again, I don't like to play like what if games, but you know, even like I think that the fact that that book and TV show, like that period of our lives happened, and then COVID started, and then I became a parent. Like, I'm glad that I had, like, I feel like that trajectory for me of like really, really intense sort of self-evaluation and this kind of like, I don't even think it's a bad thing to say it, somewhat self-mythologizing. Like we write this book and we do our best to kind of make it seem interesting, and sort of like we didn't just write it because we were like, yeah, this is interesting. Like we have an audience, we know who that audience is. And it felt like, let us put on record while our brains still work, what we can remember from that time, because we've never really gone into we never talk very deeply about it. And it feels like it could be interesting, and it could also be similar to the way that our music has helped people sometimes connect to something about their own lives or about the experience of other people. I really did believe truly, like, maybe if we write this story, it will connect with people and help them understand something about themselves. Through the process, it helped me understand something. So I just was like, it was just a really wonderful chapter of our life. And then it was like, boom, COVID. And then I became a parent, and I just kept thinking like, man, I'm so glad that I figured a bunch of stuff out about myself before I became a parent, because there's not 1 second of time where I can really be thinking about myself anymore. So
No.
I would never have been able to write the book while having young kids. Not a chance.
There's no introspective thoughts anymore till I don't know, 10 years from now. But yeah,
most of my thoughts are, how many more hours till I get to go back to the bed, like, and sleep for a while? It's so tiring. I love my kids. I love being a mom. It's one of the greatest things. I love being a parent. I love this time. I don't like even the sleep and the exhaustion and everything. But man, we were so productive in our 20s and 30s. And now I'm like, oh my God, just remember to shower and take the garbage out. Like, I don't know how I would have even been able to do any of this, Crazy. Do you have kids?
No, we got a dog. We're undecided. She's adorable, little Stevie. Undecided, no leaning, but it always you never know, and then whether it happens or it doesn't happen, you just spend much of your life just thinking about hindsight and all that lovely stuff. In circling back to the song, but I appreciate all this.
Sure.
No, I listen.
I keep thinking
lady.
it. I'm like, somehow find a way to thread this back to the song.
Hey, that's my job.
My son loves ghosts. He loves ghosts. He loves Halloween. It's his favorite holiday. So, I don't even know if I've ever played Walking with a Ghost for him. He's not very interested in our music. And if I play guitar in front of him, he's like, no, mom, I'll do it. I'll show you how to do it. Like, he's not interested. He's just not. It's like, it's very humbling. It's very humbling.
Yeah, your mom was a pretty big deal. And you're like, yeah, okay, all right.
I think he has I've shown him, like, actually my sister was just on national television doing this like book competition thing. And in the mornings we would watch it, and Sid tried, he was like, okay, so TT is wearing different clothes now. And we're like, yeah, because it's a different day. And that's her, like, right now. And he's just like, okay. Like, it's just, it's like too hard for him to understand,
How old is he?
He's 4.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I don't know how to explain. He thinks, when I say to him, what do? He says, you go to the garage and you make music. And he'll say, like, you do emails. And I'm like, that's all you need to know. That's basically it. Once I introduce the idea of podcasting to him, he'll have the whole gamut of like what I do.
You get a bunch of emails and you go, ugh. And you're full of, they weigh on your shoulders like a ton of bricks, and then you respond to 3 of them, and you go,
and
okay.
You respond to 3, but you somehow manage to screw up one of them and send it to the wrong person, and you don't even know how that happened. And
you screwed up this one because you said yes to doing this podcast. Way to go, Sarah.
Okay.
In prep for this, it sounded like there was a lot of uncertainty with your band going into this album, or in the in the era before it, that there was threats of going back to school, or that so I forget who said it, but it's like actually no, you said this, that you for sure thought it would be the end of Tegan and Sara when you moved to Montreal. Did you? I guess my first question is, why did you move to Montreal? And looking back, did you, in the grand scheme of things, have to move back to Montreal or move to Montreal?
First of all, when I was just looking over the notes that I got about doing this podcast, I saw the quote. There was a quote, something about like what you're talking about, like kind of like this could be the end of the band. And I thought, the first thing I thought to myself, and I'll just be honest, because I think that's more interesting than making up a story. I thought to myself, oh God, we always say that. We're always threatening that this is going to be the last album. Like, because I think that right now, like we're making this album and I'm like, I don't know, this might be the last one. And I'm fairly certain when we went out and shopped, we made Crybaby and then we went out and found like a record company. And I remember telling people through the process of like looking for a record company, like this could be it. This could be it. Like I think I'm always like, I don't know if we're going to do this anymore. So I don't know how real that is. I do remember that right before I moved to Montreal, there was a particularly difficult time between me and Tegan. We always had this kind of like conflict and tension, and there was disputes and fights and whatever. I was also breaking up with my girlfriend, and I just remember this kind of, I want to go out and do something for me. Like I just remember thinking like I don't feel happy in Vancouver. I chose this career, but in a way it was kind of like that was the option that was presented to me. Like I know that sounds crazy because like I'm in a band and it's cool and there's no question. But at the time it didn't really feel like that. It felt like it didn't really feel that much like fun. There was no money. We had no money. We fought all the time. All the things that maybe other normal people like to do, like go on TV or meet musicians or whatever. I hated doing all of that. I don't even think we knew the term social anxiety, but I had a lot of social anxiety.
Sure, yeah.
And I just remember thinking like, God, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And I had a really exciting and fun time in Montreal on a previous tour, and it had stuck in my head that it was a place that I could go. And I just was like, I'm just going to run away and go. I don't even like to say run away. I was running toward something new that to me felt like a better fit. And when I got there almost immediately, I mean, it was a little bumpy when I first got there because I didn't really know anybody. And I was definitely homesick and I felt freaked out. But the sun would come up. I'd get up, I'd take a shower, and I would be like, let's do this. Like I just remember the feeling of like, this city, it's calling me and I should be here. And there was so much music. It was super easy to meet people. And it was a music town, it was like every night I was going out to like Sala Rosa or Casa de Popolo or wherever. I could see music anytime I wanted, and good bands, like great bands, and I just was like, this feels more like where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
The whole time. And I think as soon as I got there and I started feeling creative again, that instinct of like, oh, I want to show Tegan what I'm doing, so it was like I was in Montreal and I was getting my space, but I was also recording everything that I was writing and putting it on like, I would put it on like CD, like DVR, like CDs, burned a CD, and I would go meet her on tour, and I would be like, listen to these songs. And that always seems to be the way that we kind of find our way back to the project is, just like you write stuff you're excited about. And she's one of the first people I want, feedback. I want her to go like, that's awesome, or that's really cool, or, whatever. So I think, I don't know how real it was that I was like, no, maybe I'm not going to be in a band anymore. I think I think I needed my own thing. I think I needed to like move to a city I actually really liked and vibed with, meet some people, and like, just like be young and not be at work all the time.
I guess get the sense from, the way you described it, like, your guys are working so hard to get that traction and be taken seriously as a band and be, create the music you want to. But like you'd been doing that since you were, kids still living at home, living together, that like, regardless of how accomplished you are, you're still doing everything kind of the same zone or energy you would have when you were still in high school. So just like, I need to fuck off. I need to go live a different life.
100%.
You did essentially what your college fling did to you. Just like, give me some time to figure out who I am, and I'm going to come back with this absolute banger.
I mean, I remember writing at that point, I loved working in I was at the time I was working in Pro Tools, like the recording program Pro Tools, and I was just getting the hang of it. Like we'd used it to demo songs for the record previous, If It Was You, but by the time we got to So Jealous, like I did feel like I had a better handle on the program, and I remember thinking that my demo was very cool. Like I was like, okay, I've got this sound now, and I have this specifically my voice. Like at the time I didn't think there was anything particularly special about the guitar part. I didn't think there was anything interesting about the key change or the rhythm or the rhythm of the guitar versus the rhythm of the vocal. Like I wasn't thinking like that. I just was like, okay, I've got this kind of interesting progression and guitar part. I'll sort of loop it, see what I come up with. And for me it was the voice. It was
Yeah.
something about the register I was singing in and the sadness of it, and it felt cool. And I remember thinking that I didn't always like I loved making music and I loved writing songs, but I had, besides our like little dumb like um home stereo recordings, I had
Yeah.
always struggled with our recordings. Like I always was like, there's something not right for me, not capturing it for me. And I remember with the So Jealous demos feeling like I'm starting to capture through my own kind of approach to recording what I want to hear on an album or on a recorded version of a song.
I listened to So Jealous and the previous record, and there's this level when me listening to it myself, I hear this like incredible vulnerability in your voice and in Tegan's voice that maybe wasn't there on the previous record. And I still really like that record, and regardless of how much you two didn't want Living Room on it, it just didn't sound as it didn't sound as pure or what you two would become. So I think that emphasis on just the way I am singing was pretty spot on.
Yeah. I think too, like I think about this a lot because obviously the team that we made, If It Was You with, we made like, we were sort of like uniting the same people. But I do think, I think, we were so young. Like we were just
Babies.
like we were babies, and we were just, my voice changes now. Like I listened to like my demos this morning. I'm listening to like songs for like our new record that I'm writing. And I think that like it's a muscle. You're like using it again and again and again and again and again. And between the If It Was You and So Jealous, we had clocked so much more time,
Yeah.
singing and performing and listening back and editing. And then I also think, what even for If It Was You, like it would have been really hard for us. I mean, it'd be interesting to hear what John and Dave, like the producers of If It Was You, would say the difference was. But because I remember when we gave them the demos to If It Was You, they were like, what do you need us for? Like I remember them being very complimentary of our demos. Like, you guys have a sound and you've like figured it out. But to me, I was like, no, we need you to help us to elevate that and like bring it to the forefront. And by the time we got to So Jealous, it was a little bit more bossy. Like we were a little bit more like, I know what I want this to sound like. I know what I like or I don't like. And I think also our influences had really changed a lot between If It Was You and So Jealous. Like I had gone to Montreal and I had really locked in. Like it was another surge of time where I was like listening, going and seeing a lot of live bands. Because Tegan and I, when we got out of high school, we had seen a lot of like punk bands and we'd seen a lot of music at the arena, like Smashing Pumpkins comes through town or whatever. But I actually, when we started touring, I hadn't been in like a club and seen like a band play. Like when we went out and
It's so
started
dangerous.
well, it's like I spent my whole high school experience was going to raves and listening to music in people's cars and maybe going to like a punk show every once in a while. So in a weird way. And then we went and toured with Neil Young. We were like in amphitheaters and touring with Neil. So when I moved to Montreal and I realized, okay, here are the venues that I know in Montreal that we would play that are like 150 people or 300 people. And I got into that scene. Like I got into that kind of music and those kinds of bands. And that had a huge influence on me. It was like, I just was like, oh my God, like absorbing not just what the music sounded like, but I was seeing bands play all the time. And I was going like, okay, like that person is cool, or I like the way that looks. Like I hadn't really, I hadn't done that yet. I had like,
Yeah.
I just hadn't done that. And So Jealous was a huge leap for us too, because it did get us in front of audiences, like playing with bands like The Killers. We toured with we did festivals. We saw a lot of bands play at that time. So we were really like absorbing a lot of like visual and, sonic information. And then we were just turning right around and putting it into our albums, like so fast.
You just spent a handful of years, rediscovering or relearning, oh shit, there's a whole different level of register of cool or of excitement or just a different energy that comes from this live, performing live in that type of environment. Like, yeah, that's going to mold that's going to be a huge change for you.
It was, yeah. It was huge. And I remember like you can't put the genie back in the bottle kind of feeling. Like I remember when I started figuring out who was cool, like who the bands were that were cool, what magazines were cool, top 10 lists. We'd go through town and, we'd be in town at the same time as another band that was similar size to us, but they'd be like on the cover of the music magazine and we would be like on the inside, with smaller story. And I would just think about that. Like it really, not
were
to
they
take
men?
away. Well, even if they weren't, like it was less, I mean, that was a thing a lot of the times, but it was also just like, I hadn't, that sort of, I mean, to put it in the sort of framework now of like social media and comparing yourself to people,
Of
like
course.
I definitely had compared myself to people, but growing up, I always felt I didn't suffer that. I didn't. Like I definitely remember like a little bit of like, I hope I'm going to make friends with the popular kids, but then I remember making friends with them and thinking that they were mean. So I like found different kids and those kids were amazing. But for some reason, I could not apply that in music. Like I just was like, nope, I discovered Pitchfork and now I can't handle that Pitchfork hates me and I like all the bands that Pitchfork likes, but they don't like me. So that means I must be bad.
They hate you guys.
They really did. I feel like they've softened slightly lately. In the last few years, I feel like it's changed. But in the beginning, yeah, they hated us. Like it was horrible.
That's an evergreen trope on this show is reading the smug reviews of we liked them before they were big and now they're a little bit bigger and they suck. They didn't like you to begin with.
No, and I will give them that. Very authentically, they hated us right from the first time they mentioned us.
Yeah.
And then it was around Sainthood.
Yeah, Sainthood was the one that got a 7.3.
Yes. Oh, we can't get out of the sevens. We're dead in the sevens. Like it doesn't matter what we do, we'll always be in the sevens. But I remember it was right around Sainthood. So, just as we were sort of approaching 30 and we had been in the industry for 10 years, a new generation of journalists started talking about us. And a lot of them were women and a lot of them were queer and a lot of them were starting to say the things we had been feeling, which was like, Jesus, really beat the fuck out of this band. Like, why are you guys so mean about this band? Like, they have some valid things. And here's the thing. I've always said, like, I love criticism. Meaning I like to read it. I like to receive it because I think good constructive criticism should look at your project. It should talk about what works and what doesn't. It should talk about what is unique about it or what sucks about it. I think it's an important part of how I learn. And so when we started getting really bad reviews, a big part for me was just like, really? You can't find one good thing to say about us? Like, there's not anything that you think is good about us? Like, that was always hard for me.
Not to bring up previous trauma or previous eye rolls at these shitbags. And I quote, "The first single from So Jealous, Walking With It Goes, sounds like one of those dummy MP3s major labels post on Kazaa." There's a lot of people listening that don't remember what Kazaa was.
I don't even know what Kazaa is, honestly.
It was after Napster.
Okay. Got it.
To fool unsuspecting music lovers while the first 10 seconds loop to 5 minutes. Remember when you thought House of Jealous Lovers was instrumental? Walking With a Ghost repeats 3 or 4 mundane phrases, particularly Out of My Mind, dozens of times in 2.5 minutes, all over the same jerky, studio-polished guitar chords. I suppose it's almost as catchy as the latest McDonald's jingle, but it's also utterly boring.
Yeah, I remember it. And what's funny is I remember it so specifically because I had never heard of Pitchfork.
Yeah.
And so when the review came out, our publicist at the time was really upset because he said, I would never have pitched this to Pitchfork. It was your label, like your record label, because it was like Pitchfork was such a big deal at that moment, and it was really breaking bands. And I mean, like I can physically remember where I was when I read it, how I felt. It was awful, and I think
Yep.
I think because, again, it wasn't like we hadn't heard terrible things said about us and written about us. But to me, this was like, I had been told, like, this is like premier. They wouldn't have said the New York Times of whatever. That wasn't a thing. But they were like, this is the premier thing you do not want to get. You want to either not be reviewed
Yeah.
or get a good review. You do not want to get a bad review. And we got one. And I remember being sick, like physically ill about it. And, you know, it got slightly easier over the years, I think, because we expected it. Like, we always knew, like, when we put out the con, I was like, they're going to hate it. They're going to say stuff that's mean. And
Tegan's
specifically,
listening to too much against me. You know how it is.
whatever it is. Well, actually, one of the most offensive things in the original review of the con, they ended up taking out of the review, because it was insulting to Death Cab for Cutie, because they had written, produced by fellow lesbian Chris Walla. They called him a lesbian. And I remember our publicists complaining about the review, and maybe even like somebody on Chris's team complaining, and they took that out. And
Good.
I remember being like, I guess, but I mean, like, so they protected Chris, but they still like left all the shitty shit about us. But I just remember, like, it was a good lesson for me, because it was, I just remember thinking it's proof, and it just would happen over and over and over again till the change, you know, like right around the con into sainthood, everything changed. Like, I'm not saying we're like the most like critically acclaimed band, but people are much nicer about us now and have a much healthier sort of like perspective on what we are and what we aren't. And I think that shift feels more fair. It doesn't mean that
I think you also started being a woman-fronted, you know, a band fronted by two lesbian women at the most toxic
it was horrible
time in existence. And when we inevitably do talk about the White Stripes, that's something I do want to, you know, like, you know, you saw it firsthand with Meg, but I remember just like, I can't imagine just the utter bullshit that you and Tegan would have to go through.
Yeah, and that's like, I want to be really clear, like, the Pitchfork review, or the tenor of those reviews at that time, why they hurt wasn't because it was like everything was roses in the rest of our life and our career, and it was like, wait a second, I thought everybody loved us, and it turns out Pitchfork hates us. Like, it felt like it was hard to be who we were at that time, and to see, like, it was one thing to go, yeah, sometimes guys at the shows are mean to us, or sometimes bands say rude things to us, or sometimes trolls say weird things to us. It was another thing to say, here's a reputable group of people who everyone says are the right people to impress because they know everything about music, and they fucking hate you. And it was like, oh, Jesus. Like, it's I can ignore the guys, you know, talking shit about us at our shows or on blogs or whatever. That I found it very difficult to ignore that people I respected or I valued their opinions didn't like us. And I just remember just like feeling like, do we quit? Like, are we that bad? And then so many people in my life, like so many bands and people I was connected with, they were the kinds of bands and artists who were on Pitchfork and getting great reviews. And they were just like, it doesn't matter. Like, fuck all of that. And they would say that all the time to us. They would be like, oh, it doesn't matter. And I'm like, it does matter, because if you were a band that was getting like a shit review, you would feel bad. But the difference also was that there was so much, you know, like there were so many bands and so many artists who were getting reviewed on Pitchfork that couldn't like sell a ticket and like are gone, you know? Like,
of course.
I knew, and as we carried on through our career, I was like, I could start to feel the sort of like pulling apart of like, yes, this matters to me as an artist, but no, it's not having an effect on of building a career and connecting to people. And on my worst days, it was hard to feel this, but I would mostly just think, just remember that you've sold millions of records and singles and tickets, and, you know, people stand on the street and cry, and you tell you stories about their life, and like you're
Yeah.
doing something real. Like, who gives a shit if this person likes your song? Like, who cares? And but it's hard. Like, we're still human. Like, it still
Yeah.
hurts, our feelings or whatever.
One person that did like your song and this song was Jack White, and you said that you were kind of hearing rumblings that he was praising it, and that the band was performing it live in 2005 a handful of times. In your, what was your connection to the White Stripes? Were you a fan? Were you just a passerby? Were you contemporaries? What was it like sharing that space with the White Stripes?
I wouldn't say that I was a fan. I wasn't like not a fan.
Yeah.
Feel like I definitely recognized that they were cool and unique. And I remember thinking like, oh, they've got a thing and like they're
Yeah.
cool. It definitely wasn't like the music I was listening to at the time. But I understood like where they were in the pecking order, certainly. And I mean, they were in my mind, they were like huge,
Yeah.
huge band. And so when we first heard that they were covering it, I remember thinking they're making fun of us, like the way, because at the time it was very popular to cover like pop songs. Like you would,
Yeah.
like I remember Travis covered Britney Spears' "Baby Hit Me One More Time," and like I thought, oh, they're making fun of us, which is distorted on a couple different levels. Like that I would think of myself as being like a pop song in the same level like "Hit Me Baby One More Time." Like it doesn't make any sense. Like it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that was my first reaction. Like the first thing that jumped to my mind was not, oh, cool, like they like us and they like our song. It was they're making fun of this, or they're I didn't think of it as a good thing, and it was people in our orbit who were like, get a grip. They think you're cool. They're doing your song because they think it's a cool song. And that was exciting.
Jack said that he liked the song because it felt like something maybe the White Stripes could have written. How did you feel hearing that? And, how did you feel about Jack White as a songwriter?
Yeah, I mean, anything they said about us or the song made me very happy. I mean, I just remember thinking like, oh God, what a relief. And also, it happened around the same time as a bunch of other, like, it's hard for me to sort of like completely like untangle. Like I think we were either out on tour with the Killers, or like that had just happened and those guys had really like co-signed on us hard. Like Ronnie specifically, like the drummer from the Killers, had picked us for the tour. And so I already had started to sort of feel like, well, people are something's happening.
Yeah.
And I remember, the Killers tour specifically, we would play and then we would go out to the merch table and we would just like sell out of records every night. And we were getting a lot of like face to face, eyeballs to eyeballs, like, you guys are fucking good. Like, who are you? And I mean, and I hate to say this but this is the way we thought back then, especially. It was also a lot of men. Men were coming up and saying like, you guys are fucking awesome. Like, those were cool songs. Like, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
we know, bud.
But I just remember being like, great. Like, this is a good fit. And I remember like people in our world kind of being like, we didn't think this would be a good fit with the Killers, but it turns out, men can hear you, or whatever. And so I just remember like, I just remember thinking like, okay, something's happening. Like, we're selling records, we're playing shows that feel pretty good, and the audience likes us, the band likes us. The band is like Bono and David Bowie are coming out to see their show, and we're opening. We're the band they want. And so I remember thinking like, okay, this is feeling good. And then, Rolling Stone put So Jealous on its top 50 records of the year, which was huge for us. And, so there was stuff happening.
Yeah.
And maybe even we had just got wind that a TV show that nobody had heard yet because it hadn't aired, but Grey's Anatomy wanted to use some of our music for their show, and they paid really well. And I remember thinking, all right, we've got money coming in. We've got people saying they like us. We're getting opportunities. We got offered Coachella that album cycle. And then this thing kind of happened all in the same period of time. And I just remember thinking like, wow, like something is happening finally. Like we're sort of like emerging from the underground, and we're not getting stomped on like people like us. And so, yeah, I mean, I was stoked.
I laugh when you talk about the interaction at the merch stand, because I can distinctly remember 18-year-old me. I just graduated high school, and I'm like, who's this band the White Stripes, like my favorite band, are covering? I'm like, who's Tegan and Sara? And it's like, folk sisters from Montreal. Like, no thanks. Like,
Yeah.
it stopped and ended there. Like, I just, again,
Yeah.
you have this connection to the White Stripes. Tegan's on I'm a Big Against Me fan. She's on that. She's on Born on the FM
Yeah,
Waves of
great
the Heart.
tune.
And I'm like, I should have gotten into this band, but I'm like, no, girls can't rock.
But just for the record, like it's not like I'm immune to that either. Like I have lots of there's plenty of that in me too. I think it's just like it's like when something's too good. Like I really, really like that band Geese, and I
accidentally bought tickets to Goose.
Actually, the truth is that I didn't hear Geese. I heard Cameron Winter's solo record.
Oh yeah,
and I really liked it. And then the Geese record came out, and the press annoyed me. Like I just was like, oh my god, like what? And there's something in me that is very allergic to anything that gets like so much press and is like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. And I like the band and I like Cameron. Like, I think that he's fantastic, but I also can be sort of like convinced away from my feeling about something if other people feel away. And I think, that happened a lot in our career. I mean, even in the beginning of our career where we were like nobodies and had nothing going for us except that Neil Young and his manager had signed us, and that was it. Like, so what does that even mean? Right? Like, there's no money. At that point, it was just a sentence, like in a bio, as we're like out there hustling, trying to get a job, basically. And I just remember the first thing that happened was not that people were like, wow, that's incredible. The first thing that happened was people being like, why you?
Yeah.
Like, nothing had happened yet. I was like, what do you mean, why us? Like, why did he pick you guys? Like, the people were so shocked. I mean, we were shocked too. We were like, wow, okay, this is so cool. But like, I think from the very beginning of our career, it was never kind of like warm. It was always like a little hostile. In the beginning, and we sort of had to warm people up. And there were people who were just like, yeah, I don't like you because insert a thing, because Neil Young signed you and that just makes me feel weird. Or you're a girl and I think you're annoying. Or your voice sounds weird. Or you talk too much or whatever. And like, as I got older, I started to just realize like, yeah, you're not for everybody. Like, you're not. And actually, a lot of the things that people like in this world, I don't like. My wife always says that the most important thing in a relationship is that you both hate the same things. That's what's important. And, I think when something just turns you off, like when something is just not for you, there's something really valid there. I don't think you have to be mean about it. But like, I look back at the beginning of our career and I'm like, look, I get it. It was a really like ugly time. And it was an ugly time. It was a new emerging culture coming out of the internet that was suddenly mainstreamed, and it was like we were just in the crossfire. Like I think I don't begrudge anyone anymore. I used to feel really dark about it, and now I'm just kind of like, I don't think anyone who wrote those things goes back and is like, you know what I feel good about? Saying what I did about Tegan and Sara's, whatever. In fact, I've spent a lot of the late part of my career, like to date, I meet people all the time who are like, ugh, I hated you guys, or ugh, I wrote this review and it's like embarrassing to me now. And I'm like, you know what? We all deserve to be able to move on from those things and not suffer. Like, don't feel too bad. You're 25 and you listened to the album once. It's fine. You're showing
self-awareness and growth, and that's all you can ask for in a grown-up person.
That's all I'm trying to do. Like, I think it's one of the most pressing issues of our time. No joke. Like, the internet has made us the sort of like the social cultural movement to just like say whatever you want while also making it punishable by death to say anything you want is just, it's too much. It's too much.
It's incredibly eloquently put, and I can't add on anything because that's exactly how things certainly work in our modern time.
It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah.
It makes me want to bury myself in the sand. Like, I just am. It's such a scary and complicated time. And I think, like, even musically, like, I think about how much freedom We would have experienced it as something different back then. We would have been like, nobody wants to talk to us. Nobody wants to ask us deep questions about our lives or our feelings or our politics or our songs. And now I'm like, that was the best time because we were just like making music without talking about it all the time.
So you're girls and you look the same. What's that like?
I mean, that could still happen. I feel like, I'm still holding out. I hope we get Howard Stern at one point. That's still on my bucket list. And I have a feeling that a lot of the questions will probably be like, so you're girls who like girls.
Well, that's pretty wild. How did that all start?
And I'm fine with it. Like, I'm kind of like, don't go on Howard Stern if you don't want to drink the Kool-Aid, Like,
Robin, they like girls. Can you believe that?
So be honest. Anything happened between you two ever? Nothing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, like if there's going to be one last incest joke before I die, it's going to be Howard Stern, and I'm fine with it. Like, there's this part of me that's just like, I'm older now. When a lot of this stuff was happening, I was a child, and it was older men talking shit about 22-year-old girls, and it sucked. And now I'm like, I can take it. I'm 45. Go ahead, say what you want to say.
The idea of you being on Howard Stern and getting the lesbian, getting grilled on being a lesbian is. Again, that's a license to print money. That's like putting a Tim Hortons by the highway. You're golden.
That's fine. I'm fine with it. Like, I know what we're dealing with. I know what the audience is. I think, we're in a very different place than we were 25 years ago. And I watch with a lot of empathy and compassion for young people starting in the industry today. I don't know if I would have perished. Because I struggled back then and it was so different.
Yeah.
I find you got one or two bad reviews on an album cycle and you felt like shit, but you literally had to go to Milwaukee and pick up the weekly rag from the, bar floor or whatever. That was how you saw it. Like now it just feels like it's punching people in the face over and over and over again. And I get why people go banana pants. Like I get it.
It's there when you wake up. It's there when you go to sleep. And it's just like the alternatives are, just restrict yourself from them. It's like, well, maybe those things I shouldn't have to restrict myself to these things that, maybe shouldn't exist, or if they should exist in the shadows like they did in a more sensible time.
I think the shadowy time was it was a fine time as far as I'm concerned. It was a fine time,
So back in the shadowy time, I'm always curious about when a band covers another band. Like, how does that process work? How do you find out that they want to record the song and release it? Like, take me back to that, October 2005.
I mean, I don't think to play it live. I mean, nobody asked us permission to do anything until there was an actual recording that was going to come out. And there's little, I mean, honestly, it's not something that I remember like really being part of the process. It was just kind of like we heard that it had happened, and then there was an invitation to meet Meg. She was going to be at our show in Detroit, and she was going to play it for us. And we were like, I mean, what a wonderful time too, because it wasn't like, here's a MP3 that you can stream, but you have to enter a passcode, and then you have to sign up an email account, and then you have to download an app, and then you have to put another code in, and then you have to have a Facebook account linked, and then by the time you listen to the goddamn song, it sends a message to the person who sent it to you, and they're like, so I know you listened to the song, and you're like, wow. So that's a nightmare now. Sharing music is a nightmare now, but back then it was like, after your show, Meg wants to come and play her. I think there was a little boombox in the room already, like a little thing. But she just like literally whipped out a CD and put it in and played it and listened to the whole thing. Like, it wasn't like me the way I play music, where like 30 seconds in, I'm like, well, you get the point. It sounds like shit. Turn it off.
Meg, get this shit out.
Pitchfork was right. We're horrible. Like I hate listening to our music, but she just leaned in. She was like, let's listen to this whole thing. So we did. Yeah. And then she was like, all right, let's go bowling. And we went and bowled and drank, and she smoked, and we had a lovely time. She was great.
I read, I think in an interview with an Exclaim magazine, that you'd never 10-pin bowled at this point.
No, we grew up 5-pin bowling, like, because that's what you do really in Canada. I mean, there is 10-pin bowling, but 5-pin was just like...
5-pin was way more prominent.
It seems insane to 10-pin bowl when you're a child? Like, people are always like, what is 5
The ball's
pin?
like 50 pounds.
I'm like, first of all, what child is bowling with a 10-pin bowling ball? Like, it's very confusing still to me to this day.
So when Meg appears, out of the shadows in the shadowy time and said, "I'm going to play you this song,"
Yeah.
when you hear it, what do you think? Like, did they do it justice? I have my thoughts on their version, but like, what was the experience like? What was your first thoughts?
I mean, I was very nervous. Like,
Really?
When she started playing, yeah, because I'm like, oh God, it's this thing that I don't like it when anyone says, "Can I play you a song?" and they're with me.
Oh no, that's the worst thing in the world.
I don't like it.
Yeah,
and
I agree with you.
We actually have this thing where when you're, especially on tour, where people usually not in our orbit will do it, but like, maybe we're like touring with an opening band or something and somebody will say, "Can I play you this demo?" And it'll be like a laptop opens and like a Logic session pops up and I'm like,
Sure.
Holy shit. No, I don't want to do that because I don't want to have to do it with them. And that's probably about me, and I have intimacy issues, but I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I worked it out.
I've come to terms with that. Let me
I'm
listen
fine
to
with
this
it.
damn demo.
I have
on
friends.
my own
I'm in a
time.
band. I have 2 children and a wife. Like, I worked it out. But it's like, I don't want to listen to your demo with you. I
Sure.
don't want to. So it doesn't matter if it's Meg, like White. You're like, I guess my first thing was just more like, I was like, oh God, this is like, it's so awkward. Like, what do I do? Do I smile? Do I look at her? I feel like her eyes were closed. I don't know. I can't remember. But
Meg's like the shyest. At least next to Jack, like, comes off as the shyest, most reserved person. So I don't know how.
I think she
how
seemed
felt.
reserved. She did not seem shy to me. She seemed so confident. Like, to me, she sort of
ran
like
Detroit.
Yeah, she just kind of like we were like, I felt like I was like it was our dressing room. We'd been there all day, but when she arrived, I sort of felt like I was like, I'm so sorry, we're in your space. Like, I felt like she was completely kind and wonderful and warm and all of that. But I don't know, she was just cool. She was so cool. Like, I'm not cool. Like, I have charisma. I can hold my own. I know my strengths and weaknesses. She's cool. I'm not. And I remember even going to the bowling alley, and I'm fairly certain she smoked and drank and never put either thing down and bowled.
God, that's so cool.
Like, maybe she was bowling with her like 2 baby fingers. I have no idea. But she just like never, in my memory, she just like, and also bowling is not cool. Bowling is it's an awkward movement, and the shoes are dorky. And
terrible first date.
I feel like she looked cool, and I definitely do not think she had bowling shoes on. I think she bowled in whatever she came in. And meanwhile, we're all like, a size 7, please. Like, we're getting bowling shoes.
So how long does not, how far into the night does that go? How long are you out with Meg drinking and bowling?
I feel like till they closed or later.
That's pretty sick.
I feel like it was till they closed or later, and yeah, we were all excited. And I'm almost 100% certain she did not leave the CD with us. Like, it wasn't like this is for you. It was like, I played it and then she left. And that was it. That was it. And to me, the sort of life of that is in the story of it. It's not, I don't think we saw any sort of like meaningful bump in sales and I guess that goes back to your question about like, what did I think of the version? It seemed like a jammy, spacey, like atmospheric. Like, it certainly wasn't like suddenly like, wow, that's a huge smash. Like, that's going to go straight to the top of the pops or something. Like, I was like, oh, it's sort of like a jammy.
It is spacey. It's airy. It's
airy, yeah. And I remember thinking like, oh, it's cool, but I wasn't like, well, this is going to change our lives forever. It wasn't like Britney Spears was backstage being like, so I'm going to do a pop version. We out at a bridge, like, it was like, here's a cool like interpretation of like this song, and we covered it and we played it, and it was more about cred. It was more about being able to go like to alt radio stations and college radio stations, which were playing the song at the time. And they go, every single one, of course, wants to talk about it. And it was like, that was an easier conversation than having the person come in and go, okay, so you wrote the song about this. Did it involve ghosts? Like, it was like the conversation was a bit stilted at that point.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it was like every conversation just started with like, so wow, Jack White covered your song. Or in some cases, people said, you covered the White Stripes, and we
And
would
you're
have
like,
to
hey,
be
asshole.
we would be like, oh my God, no. But like, so actually in some ways, it just gave us this, I mean, and this is, I mean, narrative is everything, like if you have a story to tell, like, people are more interested. And it also, I think, for anyone who had been on the fence a bit about us, like, I think going back to the Pitchfork review, I think a lot of people, and this is not like a problem that just started recently. I think a lot of people, they get delivered, they have to listen to something, they listen to it very quick, they have their first reactions to it, and then they live with it. And back then, more so than now, an album could grow on you. Like it really
of
could.
course.
Like also a lot of So Jealous is deep cuts. Like I think some of my favorite songs on that record that I love, like I personally love, they're not songs that you would have listened to once and went like, oh wow. But like over the years, I don't know, like a song like Downtown. Like I listened to that song and I'm like, oh, I love this song. I could write this song
That's
now
the
and feel
best.
happy about it. And I think, like in fairness to that time, there was still that like, okay, hurry up and review a bunch of shit. And then it was like, if the first reaction was like, what? They're lesbian twins and they're playing acoustics and they're,
Wait a minute, they're from Canada?
It's fucking annoying, like, and then I think the album would grow on people. And so I think that anyone who is sort of, not anyone, but like a lot of people who'd been a little bit on the fence about it or been like, I don't really like this. I think when the White Stripes covered it, there was also like a, maybe I'll go back and I'll listen to that again. Like, what do they hear that I don't hear? And so we also experienced a little bit of that. It was like, okay, well, if Jack likes it, then maybe I'd be into it. And I can go to the place of where people would roll their eyes or be like, that sucks. And it's like, no, that's the way the world works. Like, you want someone to co-sign for you. That's just how it works, And I saw it. You know what the other thing is, too? Like, I do think there's actually a little bit of sexism here. Like, we've toured with bands when they're about to blow up multiple times. So Killers being the first, maybe biggest one, we went on their tour that they had put on sale when Hot Fuss came out. They were already selling out arenas, but we did the theater tour. Like they had sold out a theater tour. And that every night of that tour, I just was like, this band is going to be a gigantic band. It was like, it was crazy. It was like every song, every word, and they were so good. And every night there was someone famous and iconic wanting to talk to them, famous journalists backstage. Like I was like, we are witnessing a band that's going to be around for a long time. I remember feeling that at the time about Ryan Adams when we toured with him. Same thing. It's same vibe. Maybe not like the blowing up thing, but I remember being like, wow, our proximity to somebody that everybody wants to be around and talk to and come backstage and rub shoulders with. Like, I remember that time, being like, you're not going to have like Brandon from the Killers being like, sorry, do I have to defend that David Bowie likes me? No, you're like, fucking David Bowie likes me. That's fucking amazing.
Of course.
We spent a lot of time in these deep philosophical, like, almost like scalpatory conversation. Like, why do you think Jack White likes you? And I'd be like, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, if we had been guys, we would have just been like, we're the fucking best. Suck my dick. Like we were like, we were constantly put in a position where we had to like help the other person, including ourselves, understand why would Neil Young sign you? Why the fuck would Jack White cover you? Can you explain it? Whereas like all these bands and artists we had toured with who were like men and had other men co-signing for them, they never said like, well, I think what David Bowie likes about us is they're just like, yeah, David Bowie's at our show, man. Like fucking yeah.
But you in your mind as a woman in that era has to be like, I think for reasons 6 through 8 are
exactly.
a key reason.
And not just in my mind, in every interview. Like we were
100%.
constantly asked to explain why people liked us and those people being famous people. And I would just be like, I don't know. Because I didn't know.
I'm sorry they like me.
Exactly.
Can we stop this conversation?
I'm like,
is that what you...
I'm like, believe me, could be a mistake. We don't know because we've never spoken to them. And I think like, that was something, and I think that persists to this day. Like I've seen lots of like, I don't know, like, young musicians, women generally are sort of like, wow, I got really famous and I was really successful and I made all this money and I'm really good and all these people like me and I'm still in a position where I'm explaining why that's real and why it's not shitty.
Yeah.
And then I see like a Cameron Winter, who I absolutely love, or a Mac DeMarco or whatever. And, you know, and it's like no one's ever like, they're just kind of, I mean, I know there's been some drama around Geese and online whatever shenanigans,
Yeah.
but like that's not their fault. But like, I don't think anyone's like, why do you think everyone likes your songs? I don't know, because they're fucking good. That's why. Anyway.
Can I just want to ask a couple of questions about this song as we begin to wrap up here. I misheard the lyrics of this. I never looked up the lyrics of the song until I did this podcast. And when I thought that it was that the narrator of this song was pining for somebody to, you know, please don't, you know, where it says, please don't insist. I thought it was some variation on please don't go. In your mind, I don't know if you can remember the inspiration, but where does please don't insist come from?
Please don't insist, like, don't insist, like, don't take the space. Like, don't tell me that this is important for you to go. Like, don't insist on this distance between us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, the idea was sort of like, I mean, it's kind of gibberish, but it's like, you know, I'm sort of saying, like, no matter which way you go, no matter which way you stay, like, you're out of my mind, meaning, like, you know, like, you're like almost like a figment of my imagination now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not seeing you. And like, it's like, you know, don't insist. Like, don't leave. Don't go.
Okay.
Don't make yourself a ghost. Don't ghost me. I mean, I guess I invented don't ghost me. I just didn't even realize it.
No, you did, and you should have copyrighted it. You would have. You wouldn't have been podcasting in the garage. That's for damn sure. So then, the lizard brain male in me wants to know is you, the narrator? Are you, you know, do you want them to be a ghost, or have they became a ghost?
No, they've become a ghost. Like, I'm still thinking about them.
Yeah.
And they're kind of a ghost. Like, they're around in my mind, like, because I'm always thinking about them. They're always around. I'm seeing them everywhere, but they're a ghost because they're nowhere.
That's pretty cool. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, I don't think I thought like crazy deep about it, but at the time, like, I think a lot of times it is just like, channeling is probably a strong word, but like, you know, there's a feeling, there's a topic that you're thinking about. Then I start to like sing a melody. I'm trying to work out syllables and syncopation. And then generally I'll start to gravitate to like a word or a couple of words and try to like make sense of it. And I think I was walking with a ghost was something I had thought about, like, oh, can't get this girl out of my head. I feel like I would like be outside in the metro, going into the metro or something, and I'd be like, is that her? Like, you know, I felt like I was seeing her everywhere. She was like on my mind, you know?
Yeah.
And I just felt like I was walking around with her in my mind. And
Totally.
actually, I was thinking about this at the top of the episode. You know, this idea, I had said the thing about like, I felt like it was like this so important. Here's this girl I've like met like a handful of times, but I have a thing for, and now I've become consumed by it. And so I assume everyone knows. But one of the things that was distorting for me was she was an art student. She was graduating from Concordia University. And one of the classmate who introduced me to her, in fact, he had done this project where he had made stencils. And one night he had written me, this was like soon after I had met her and started, you know, hanging around in Montreal. And he said, hey, I have to go. You want to ride bikes and go around and help me put up stencils for my project? I'm like, I think it was that we would put the stencils up and maybe he would take pictures, like film pictures of them.
Okay.
And I don't know, what do people in art school do? It's like, what even is that? That's a degree? Anyway, so he made...
He got an A.
He's so talented. He's an architect. He's great. But anyways, so he made stencils, but when we went out, the stencil was of her face. And so it was this like silhouette. It was like her face, and she had this like hat that she wore. And we spray painted her face all over downtown near Concordia and like the whole thing. So like I had this feeling like this person unknown, like he didn't understand what was happening for me like that. I mean, maybe he knew that I had a crush on her. I don't know. But at the time, like nothing was happening between us. She was just like his flaky, fun art friend who we'd gone to like a meow mix with or whatever. But there we are going around and spray painting her face all over the city. And it just like that. I remember that was part of the whole ghost thing was like, God, she's everywhere. Like I can't escape this person. And it just felt like everyone must know. Everyone must know that everyone must want her, and she's gonna get got by someone because I'm not with her. Like I remember that's how I felt, which is insane.
No, I mean, yeah, hell of a coincidence that's what that person's doing. But yeah, it haunts you. If you get it out of your mind, then you turn the corner and
there she is.
There she is again.
Yeah, no, it was just. Yeah, it was so specific. Like, I just was like, oh my God, this girl's like literally everywhere. And now I'm participating and like putting her face everywhere. So anyways, but we got together. We were together for many years. She became our art director. She was our art director for 20 years. We didn't date for that long. We dated for, I want to say 4 years, but it was more of we loved each other. It was a fun relationship, but really we were collaboratively drawn to each other, and
of course.
And she played a significant, cannot emphasize it enough, how significant of a role she played in our band's visual aesthetic, and she played a role in all of every album cover, our videos, and the art direction for our photo shoots. Very, very deeply involved in the way that we shaped our voice online and in activism, and I really felt fated to meet her.
When you are able to reflect on a significant person that just is so incredibly positive, and just so impactful, that's what life is all about. And that's just something, not everybody is lucky to have that. And you were, regardless of what they thought of the Montreal Gazette clippings, there was a very important bond between you that brought you back for, many very significant reasons. So I think
oh my God, I can't even it's not if I hadn't met her, of course there would have been a whole different version of Tegan and Sara. I'm not saying we wouldn't have survived or we wouldn't have whatever, something else would have happened in my life and we would have carried on. But the thought of Emmy not being involved in our band, meeting her and being involved in my life, number one, and then involved in our band, number two, just maybe one of the most consequential relationships of my life outside of my wife, who gave me 2 beautiful boys. Those 2 women, I think a lot of people will go through their lives not necessarily feeling like they've had even one of these, but I've had two significant relationships just profoundly change my life, and in positive ways. And I still know my ex as well. So she's lovely. Yeah. She's great.
Sara, I love that. I guess my one final question about the White Stripes version of this song is, if you were, and it's, perfectly fine, but you weren't the biggest follower or kind of fan of the band. Were you aware of the what they did to covers or how they approached covers, and were you expecting something different than that Meg played for you on that CD in Detroit?
I didn't know they did covers, and I definitely, I was aware of the band. They were such a visual staple in record stores, music videos, on award shows. I knew them. I was familiar. I was a very musically invested person. I like to know what was going on, but no. And in fact, I think I probably to go back to what you were saying, that you sort of maybe have some stereotypes that would have kept you from investing fully and looking into our band. I was very turned off by anything that was too guitar-y. I'm a guitar guy. I just was good for you. I just was not. There was something about the guitarness and the amps and the licks and the jamming and whatever.
All the cock rock and shit. Yeah,
it wasn't for me. I was more interested in what they looked like. I loved that Meg was kind of a cool, simple drummer. I thought that was a cool thing, because I was used to drummers just being expanding disorder and having crazy kits and stuff. And that time, I feel there was something about the minimalism of their band that I really appreciated. And I loved anything that was various, we have thought every detail out. I could respect all of that, but this is going to sound crazy. I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but I don't like the Beatles. Like, I'm not like against the Beatles, but like,
This is so funny.
I don't feel anything about the Beatles. And the White Stripes are kind of one of those bands that I think a lot of people, when they're into the White Stripes, they're like into them. And they like,
Not me.
they want to like talk about their gear and their amplification and like when this thing changed and what that, and I just don't have that. I don't have that I don't have that interest at all. And so when people or bands come out that kind of give a little bit of that, I'm sort of like, I don't think that's for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I asked that because, you know, some of their biggest songs, like, or their most notable covers is like they do Jolene and they do I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself. And they are vastly different. And, you know, it's all about emotion. And I was expecting them, me as a fan, I was expecting them to do something unique with Walking with a Ghost. And instead of doing what they would do with those songs, they kind of approached it kind of like how Jimi Hendrix like covered Sgt. Pepper's like a week after it came out. Like he didn't have time to, you know, sink his fingers in the clay. It's just like, okay, let's replicate it. So I never really was high on their version of it because it was just like, it sounded like the White Stripes trying to cover it as quickly as possible.
Sure.
They don't do it's a fine song, but it's not, you know, their fastball, their, you know, whatever sports analogy you want to use, like their fastball was what they would do with covers. And I felt like it wasn't on here. So if I wanted to know, like, if you had this awareness of what they were bringing to the table, I don't want to say underwhelming, but yeah.
No, I think it would have been hard for me at that time to say I'm underwhelmed by this because again, I wasn't like, I didn't come in with a lot of expectations. I'll say this:
sure.
I remember being on tour with Ryan Adams, and one night in soundcheck, he started covering our songs, like in soundcheck, and he was singing specifically. He was singing my song called "Not Tonight," and I thought to myself, "Wow." Like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, what I wouldn't give for somebody like Ryan Adams at that time, you know, like to like sing that song and make people realize, like, wow, that song is fucking, he just did a much better version than us. I didn't feel that way about the White Stripes song. Like, I didn't listen to it and go, wow, they killed it. Like, that's better than us or better than our version or something totally different and incredible. Like, I felt like it was jammy and like atmospheric.
But it's the
and,
act
whatever.
of it's the act of some of a band in that you know stature, that position, to identify that these cool gals from Canada there's something there, and you know, we want to put them on our pedestal. So I love that, and I love the fact that they speed run to get it out there, because it was only out, you know, you released it the previous fall, but yeah, it was more about the act than the execution for me for this.
I think you're right, and at the time, you know, both could have been cool. Like, I think if there had been a world where the song had blown up because they did a version of it that was just like sick, like, yeah, maybe that would have given our career or that version of the song a different kind of like history. But at the time, in some ways, you know, it was just we were looking for people to finally say, hey, I like them.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so stupid, but it's like, that's literally what we were looking for, was just like, every time someone said, yeah, I'll take them on tour, or yeah, they can play this festival, or yeah, we'll put them in this magazine. It was just another way of saying, hey, they're not garbage. They're not Kazam or whatever the fuck that thing in Pitchfork was. Like, this isn't like made up. This is like, these are real artists who write real songs, have real stories and real substance. And like, it might not be your cup of tea, but it has value. And let me tell you about it. And I think, you know, they were just part of that wave that started to shift things for us.
As we wrap up, what I love about this episode and the idea of having you on is this whole format's turned on its head. And normally my final I'm usually the expert. I don't know shit. You are the song. So I'm going to try to ask you what I ask everybody at the end of the show is, the next time you listen to Walking with a Ghost, probably your own version, maybe the White Stripes version, after talking about it for an hour and a half, what's going to go through your mind?
Well, just through talk, like there's a lot of this stuff that I've talked about before, obviously, like in 20 plus years, you know, some of this is just fact. It's what happened, or I've said it before or whatever. But I will, one of my takeaways is going to be, I'm going to be thinking about the lyrics a little differently, because as much as I was making a joke, like, I do think in some weird way, the kind of like, there was a novelty about singing about a ghost. Like, I remember there was a little bit of an instinct for people to be like, are you joking around? Like, is this like a bit, or is this like, I remember there was a marketing rep at Sanctuary Records who we were working with at the time, and she pitched us doing marshmallow ghosts that we would send to radio programmers. This is the thing back then that like it was we would always get into these meetings and they'd be like, what if we make
You want to be
ghosts
taken seriously?
with marshmallows and we send it with your single or whatever? But I remember it kind of being like, kind of actually something that was like holding the song back, was like, how can this, like, is this a Halloween song? You know, like this whole thing.
Sure.
But it's funny because like I think in some ways the lyrics have aged, like they're taken more seriously now, and there's something has changed in the way that we experience music like that. And I think I've sort of just like not thought deeply about the song other than when I go to Whole Foods, because it's literally on their playlist and plays every time I'm grocery shopping at Whole Foods. I don't think deeply about the lyrics. I always am like, I'll always say like, well, I wrote it about blah, 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 blah. But when I think about it now, I'm like, I think the lyrics are more like, people now don't like, it's less gimmicky. And I think that's like a testament to like sort of like how much more quirky and sort of expansive lyric writing has become, especially for women. Like the sort of like here and now, explicit detail, unique detail kind of songwriting is more common now, I think. And, you know, I think there's, that was a thing that as we were talking, I was like, that I forgot about that piece, like that there was something like goofy, that people thought the song was goofy because of the ghost piece. And I just don't think that reads that way at all now. And I do think there's something in there about how we've come to sort of like listen to music a little bit differently.
You spent an evening drinking, smoking, well, you weren't, but you drinking and smoking and bowling with Meg White. She is a mystery and an enigma in the year of our Lord 2026.
Yeah.
I'll close on this. What's Meg like?
I thought she seemed, like I said, I think she was somebody who was really cool. And I don't mean cool like at the cost of anyone else. Like, she just seemed somebody who was just like there and like comfortable. And I didn't get the sense at all from her that she was trying to make us like her, like that she was trying to win us over or make us comfortable or uncomfortable. Like, she was just present. And I felt like that made me really trust, like when she was like, hey, let's go bowling. Like, I wasn't like, no, we don't want to bother you. Like, we were like, Meg wants to go bowling. Like, she's being on it. Like, I felt like she was just like very real and present. And I also felt like when we said goodbye to her, I would never see her again. Like, I remember thinking like, I'll never see this person again. like we're not going to be friends. Not because I wouldn't want to be, but just because like, I was like, I just felt like she was from a different planet. She was in a different league. And we were just so cool. In a different bowling league, you know.
All right. I'm going to officially end the podcast by giving you one piece of visual praise. Cry Baby is an outstanding album. And this is I'm a White Stripes fan, so I know a lot about visual, physical medium. This is the most gorgeous piece of vinyl I will ever see in my life. And I love the Neapolitan. And thank you for being you and making great music.
Thank you so much. And all that artwork was Emmy, like the girl I wrote Walking with a Ghost about. She always kills it. She always kills it and always has a way of somehow taking all of our jibber jabber and what we think and say and feel and whatever and making it into something that just works visually. So yeah, I'm glad you like it. I love that record too.
Okay. That was Ryan and Sara. That, like I said, that was a special episode. I enjoyed the hell out of it. There are moments in life when you feel lucky and it's on full display, and that was a moment for me, and that has been a moment. A lot of moments with this show. I'm very lucky to get to speak to all these people. We'll be back next week with a song off of Vicky Thump. The Hardest Podcast, a podcast, is hosted by me, Ryan Schaap. Artwork by Caitlin Likely. Amanda Schultz is our assistant editorial producer, and Mike Noble is our Gato.